Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is my co-host Tyson Gentry. We are breaking down Wild Card Weekend, giving you a reaction. Interesting games all weekend long, starting Saturday, ending Monday today. Oh, Tyson, disappointing weekend, honestly, for me personally. Betting, I don't know if anybody listened to our gambling show, but I had an idea of how it was going to go, and it didn't go the way I thought.
Yeah, I had a mixed bag, but um, I don't. The Niners are the only ones that covered a big number, and you took a couple big numbers, and that's just kind of the way the
That's the
weekend worked.
That's the problem, right? Like, because we thought so, and of course, the Niners starting off the weekend covering that big number, it felt like it set the table. Like maybe a bunch of big numbers gonna be covered. And it was like, oh no, that's right, it's playoff football. Like no big numbers are ever covered.
It was just it was bookended, right? We had 18 points by the Niners, and then whatever the hell just happened in the Cowboys Buccaneers game. But in between those, we got some really good football games.
We did, and so a lot to break down. And wild card weekend reaction, or should I say, my favorite word, super wild
There
card
you
weekend
go.
reaction, which Tyson loves so much. And we got to start with what we just saw with the Cowboys Bucks game. Maybe the end of Tom Brady. I mean, maybe. I mean, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were certainly kind of hinting like maybe this is going to happen. I don't know. And we don't really know, right? Because Brady retired last year, quote unquote, and then came out of retirement. We all know that saga. Dallas was awesome tonight. They beat the Bucks 31-14, and it wasn't that close. I mean, they kicked their ass. It should have been 35-14. Brett Maher with 4 missed extra points, which is the most exciting part of the game itself.
You know how
Where,
painful that
where do you want to
was?
start here? I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, there's so many things to discuss, I guess. Like, where do you want to start?
Well, personally, I was pissed off because I had field goal tickets, and I made it all the way to Monday night before those things got busted. So that's where I'd like to start, Brad. I just want to vent a little bit. Uh, on the game itself, though, I don't know, man. I mean, I we talked about this last week. I don't know what the hell. Like everybody in the country was like, this is Bucks all the way. This is Tom Brady, and the Bucks sucked all year, and
Yeah.
then they got in the playoffs and they sucked, and
Yeah.
then I don't. Now we're gonna go into next week and go, oh my god, can you believe what the Cowboys just did to the Buccaneers? Like this team is red hot right now. It's like, well, the Bucks sucked, so it's kind of hard to tell, man. I mean, this is gonna be kind of a shitty way for Tom Brady to leave Tampa, but I don't anticipate him being done playing football.
I don't either. And for Tampa Bay itself, Todd Bowles is just not a head football coach in the NFL. Like this went from a team who was fired up and would fly around and have life and energy to being Todd Bowles. Like the dude just standing on the sideline, Tyson. Like he doesn't do anything. Yeah, arms crossed, sitting there with nothing going on. Meanwhile, last year you had Bruce Arians chewing your ass out, getting in your ass, man. Like he's fucking yelling at you and he's getting you fired up. And then you go 180 and you go to Bowles who has no life. Like he can scheme defenses all he wants. That's fine. But when he's in charge of a football team, this does not look good. And it didn't end well in New York. And it's not ending well in Tampa. Byron Leftwich, who we thought was actually a pretty good coordinator, dude, he sucks, man. Like when Brady was like, fuck it, I'm taking the reins. That's the only time they look good on offense. And that's the only time they look good on offense all season. Like this is a disaster in Tampa right now. You take Brady out of there, that might be a 4-win football team, and that's looking forward. And we're not going to get into that right now, but holy smokes, there's trouble there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Rashad White, you think will be the starter, and then Chris Godwin's locked down a new contract, and everybody else you're not totally sure. And that there's a lot of really, really good players on that offense, but you have no idea how this thing's going to shake out. Dallas first road playoff win since 1992, I think they said on the broadcast. So that's pretty impressive. Dak looked like a fucking monster today.
Oh,
That looks like the dude. It sucks being Eagles fans and taking the week off, kicking your feet up, and then Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott look like the second coming of like they both uh they one upped each other. Like everything that Daniel Jones did well, Dak Prescott came out and did tonight, and those were incredible performances by them. There's some good quarterback play so far in the playoffs.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll get into more about previewing games going forward as we get later in the week. We're coming to you live on Monday. If you're watching us on Twitch and Twitter, and if you're listening to us on podcast form, we have more later in the week as we preview these games. For the Cowboys itself, before we move on, Tyson, like you said, man, I mean, Dak Prescott was awesome. He's been struggling late in the season, throwing interceptions, but he really reined it in. Looked fantastic, shredding up that Bucs defense. And Dan Quinn's a badass, man. Like, that defense was so good tonight. Micah Parsons is playing with his hair caught on fire. They looked super, super good. And if the Cowboys team plays like this, they're one of the top 5 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's true, but the Buccaneers suck. So I'm not reading into it as much as everybody else, I think.
Cowboys play the Niners next week. We will preview that for you going forward. Now let's get into a game here that I think shocked a ton of people. The Ravens really took it to the Bengals. Like, I think they probably should have won this game. The Bengals held on to survive at home 24-17. A lot of that had to do with the fumble by Tyler Huntley on the 1-yard line, extending for the goal line, gets knocked out of his hands. And then fumble recovery by the Bengals going 99 yards for a touchdown, 98, 99 yards, whatever it was officially. They end up holding on to win by 7 points. I think the offensive line is a major concern now for the Bengals, with Jonah Williams going out with a dislocated kneecap. Where do you want to start with this one, Tyson?
Your boy Tyler Huntley was pretty good.
He was.
Actually, maybe we can start there. My bad. I want to throw apologies out for some of the slander I've been given, but he actually played well. Unfortunate that he chose to go over the top on that quarterback sneak and 14-point swing, which, that's the literal biggest play that could possibly happen on a football field. J.K. Dobbins is going to be a stud going forward, but Baltimore has to figure out what the hell is happening at quarterback next year. What's going to happen with Lamar Jackson, because that's going to decide everything. And I don't want to let it slip under the radar. That was the weirdest 2-minute drive clock management I've ever seen in a big moment.
I think this is Harbaugh's plan. If we score a touchdown, we're going for 2. I think that was his plan. He's like, you know what? We're just not going to give Burrow in this offense a chance to go score. If we score a touchdown with like 3 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever the case may be, we're going for 2. Like, I think that was his plan all along, because I saw it too. I'm like, the only reason why a head coach just lets this thing dwindle, and you're in a huddle with 45 seconds left, I'm like, oh, this guy, he just wants to score a touchdown and go for 2 and end this thing.
Well, still, you could have left 16 more seconds on the clock between what ended up happening, because then, like, now your 2 timeouts don't actually even matter. Like, you just kept them in the pocket for no reason, and like they could have benefited from maybe an extended talking to, because that was stalled out pretty hard there at the end. It was an AFC North game. I was wrong. I thought that the Bengals were going to be able to drop some bombs, and early on they kind of came out, and it was like, okay, they might be bouncing all over the place, but the Ravens defense is really good. Interested to see what happens with some of those guys going forward. Marcus Peters is the man, dude, but one day, like, it's going to be, his drop-off's going to be quick, I think. Like, the way he plays football, I don't want it to ever happen, but it just feels like it's going to be one of those things where just like, holy shit.
You think? I know it's crazy to think that he's gone through like a couple like major injuries.
I know, that's why I say that. Like, dude, he's unreal, and he's chomping everybody. They
said every single time he's played one game in his career, his team has made the postseason. Like, what a crazy stat. The dude is great, and he's an emotional leader. And if you know the stories about him coming out of college, there's some baggage with him, and obviously his tenure in Kansas City didn't end well. But he's a dude, man. Like, that guy can just play football. We'll talk about the Ravens a little bit going forward. Clearly, the drama is with Lamar Jackson. That's going to be a major topic. But with the Bengals, Tyson, this was a juggernaut team coming in. They had covered major games. They looked unstoppable on offense. And once again, this offensive line is the question. I thought the defense didn't look as good as it has as well. Like, I thought, again, this may be something attributed to, this is the 3rd time playing between the Ravens and Bengals. John Harbaugh knows how to beat this defense, and they can kind of scheme something up, and Greg Roman can kind of figure it out. But I didn't think the defense did a good job, and Lou Anarumo, it was the first time I thought there were some cracks in that defense that he puts together.
Yeah, and it was like the first time on a national broadcast all year that he's got any credit. So it was funny to watch that kind of juxtaposed there. I mean, they look fine. There was just like when J.K. Dobbins is ripping off 20 yards a pop there, those are issues, and those are things that you're going to have to clean up. Honestly, this is the best rushing team that you're going to play in the playoffs left in the AFC. It's probably the toughest matchup for the Bengals, period, in the AFC, and they got through it. To me, for the Bengals, this is the kind of performance that, and I know it wasn't great, but this is the Joe Burrow games that separate him from everybody but Patrick Mahomes for me. Because I've seen it, if this is Josh Allen, like if you flip teams, he's going to throw 3 interceptions. You're going to lose the game. Those are the things that happen. Like you can run through a lot of things, and he's so talented that Josh Allen that he was able to overcome not playing well at all against the Dolphins. But games like this where they're low scoring, you can't buy points, you can't be giving them away. Joe Burrow doesn't, and I think that's the difference between him and just about everybody else.
And we were texting about that. Like, who would you take, Burrow? Or you said, who would you take over Joe Burrow? And I said, I'd take 2 quarterbacks, obviously Mahomes and Allen. You're like, I probably would only take one in Mahomes. And that's something that you argue going forward.
Yeah. I mean, if you told me Josh Allen, I'm not mad.
Right, and I can kind of see the same thing because before, I mean, again, you last year, Tyson, were saying Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL. He just does things that nobody else can do, which on a surface level, you're right, because nobody else in the NFL can run with that much power and have that big of an arm. Like Mahomes has a great arm. Josh Allen has an unbelievable arm. Like he makes throws that are like Brett Favre sometimes is jealous of. Like it's crazy. And I'm coming around a bit. Like if Josh Allen is going to continue to turn the ball over at the rate he is, it's hard not to look at Joe Burrow and say he's the second best QB in this league because you said it, man. The Ravens play the Bengals super tough. That defense knows how to play him. And Joe Burrow wasn't spectacular. He had 1 touchdown pass. You know what he didn't have? Any turnovers. And that sometimes is the difference, especially in the playoffs. When your quarterback's under duress all game and the offense isn't looking great, and it's not perfect, but the quarterback does just enough. And that's what he did all game. And the defense made the big play in the end, but that's why it's a team sport.
And those are the moments that make the Bengals a scary team to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, if T. Higgins is quiet, and you still win a game against your division rival, ooh, good luck going forward. And we will break down Bengals versus Bills in the divisional matchup, which is on paper going to be an absolute banger. Okay, Niners Seahawks, a game that was awesome in the first half. Back and forth. I mean, the weathermen were calling for it to be an under game. Like, this is bad weather. Like, don't expect much. Well, it was fireworks show in the first half. And the Seahawks scored 17 points, didn't score for the rest of the game. Well, they scored at garbage time, but I mean, they scored 17 in the first half, were winning, and then San Francisco was like, oh, shit, we actually have to play in this one. And they did not look back.
They're scary, man. That's the only way to describe the 49ers. Defense is really good. Obviously, they got popped a couple times. It was good by Seattle. Like, it was Seattle actually played a really competitive first half and a decent game all the way around. It's just the 49ers are so much better. Like, on just talent-wise, 1 through 53, they're just better, man. And they might just be better than everybody left. To me, that game, I think the 49ers were really lucky to be playing the Seahawks with some of the, not mistakes, but just like little cracks in the armor from Brock Purdy.
I agree. And
so being able to get those out of the way against Seattle is kind of ideal because you wouldn't want to do that next week against Dallas, that's for sure.
Yeah, and everybody's going to be like, what are you talking about? Brock Purdy finished with 332 and 3 touchdowns in a rush. Like, he was good. It's like, watch the game. There were multiple times he looked like he was in over his head. Like he was missing on throws, like wide open throws. Like they could have been breaking this thing open early. It was just little things, right? I mean, that's what you expect from a young quarterback making his first start in the playoffs with speed. Now, I will say, like to your point, the talent from San Francisco just allows them to overcome anything that may be a mistake. Like, you just toss the ball to Christian McCaffrey, all of a sudden he breaks a 70-yarder. Oh, Deebo Samuel, he can go for 80 on a little out route. Like, that's the thing about the San Francisco team. Like, you don't need Brock Purdy to be Mahomes. And people have been saying this for a while, but it was so evident, I thought, in this playoffs. He wasn't great. He ends with 332 and 4 touchdowns. Like,
yeah.
It's just crazy, man. This team is so good.
He still had really good moments too. I think that's something we can't get out of here without saying. I mean, Brandon Ayuk has turned. Remember a year and a half ago when like he wasn't allowed on the field and he was in the doghouse and all that. Yeah, he's a monster. And for Seattle, we're hearing maybe franchise tag Geno if they don't come to a deal. I'm curious to see how he's going to approach it because if I'm him, I might just be like, damn, I want to get that guaranteed franchise tag one time. Like that's $40 million, man. Like just let me get it once. I'll get through next year and sign it 2 years somewhere.
If I'm the Seahawks, I don't sign Geno Smith. And people are like, what? You're crazy. Like Geno was so good this year. Tyson, how many times have we seen a flash in the pan quarterback be good for 1 year and be bad the next year? We're talking about Geno Smith, dude. We've seen him in New York, the Jets. He was bad, and like we're supposed to expect him to like all of a sudden like he was like a top 10 QB in the NFL. Do we really think Geno Smith is a top 10 QB in the NFL? I don't. And like if you franchise tag him, to your point, that's $40 million on your salary cap that has to go to the quarterback who I think is below average. If I'm the Seahawks, I move on. Draft somebody with that Broncos pick. Start rebuilding now. This is a Niners division. Let's move on.
Yeah, but that's Will Levis at 5.
Yeah, baby.
And like Pete Carroll wants to win the Super Bowl every year. He wants to make the playoffs. I don't because everybody there's like 14 teams right now that like we don't know who's going to be their quarterback, and I don't know where they're going to find these quarterbacks because there's like not enough of them to go around. So I think like Geno's going to have to come back, and maybe they do take a Will Levis and then try to play bridge quarterback, and that's something I could see. But like, dude, Pete wants to win the Super Bowl.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, I think he's going to talk himself into it again, and it's going to just not be good. That might be a fade. Something to look at going forward. The Seahawks being faded next year, but we'll have plenty more on the Seahawks in our offseason discussions, previewing that. Niners Cowboys preview coming later in the week. Should be a really good game. Can the Cowboys pay him back? Oh, it's going to be a good, fast, physical game. Now, this is something that we really need to discuss, Tyson, because the third biggest comeback in the history of the NFL playoffs happened on Saturday night. Holy smokes, man. Brandon Staley, I'm surprised I didn't get a notification he was already fired. And the fact that it hasn't happened is a joke. Jaguars beat the Chargers 31-30 after trailing 27-7 at half and being down 27-0 at some point. What the hell was going on in this game?
I don't know. Just the Chargers charging. That's the only way to look at it. It was almost like when Jacksonville scored the first touchdown and then the long bomb, that was to Zay Jones, right? The first long touchdown that they threw. That was just a beautiful play design to get Derwin James to step up and then leak somebody out behind him. Like that was great. And I think like that was when I was like, oh shit, the Chargers are actually going to lose this game. Oh. And you're sitting there and they're still down 10 points or 14 or whatever it was at the time. But you've seen it. This is just what the Chargers do. And they're not going to fire Staley. They're going to fire Joe Lombardi, and maybe Vic Fangio comes in and becomes defensive coordinator, and him and Staley reunite. Like that's the best case scenario, I think, because you expect the Spanos to pay out the rest of Staley's contract and then try to sign somebody else to coach. They don't do that.
I'm just going to make this very clear. Dean Spanos, you are a cheap fuck if you keep Brandon Staley. You are a cheap loser fuck if you don't fire Brandon Staley and go get a real head coach. You have Justin Herbert as your quarterback, and you just sat there and watched this team blow a 27-point lead in the NFL playoffs. Doesn't get bigger than this. This is what you play for. Forget the regular season. This is the moment. And you finally made it, and you finally have your quarterback. And this scrub, Brandon Staley, he's coming out of the lock. This dude is so full of shit. We need to be more. We just need to stay aggressive. Like, stay aggressive. It's like he's talking to the fucking kids at a YMCA soccer game, dude. It was such a joke. And by the way, quick aside, did you see Joey Bosa slam his helmet and Brandon Staley goes and grabs it like he's the equipment manager?
Yeah, and then Bosa just slams it right away. Fuck this guy.
Think these guys respect him? No, they don't. fire Brandon Staley right now just for grabbing that dude's helmet. Imagine Bill Belichick doing that. That's a different thing, but holy smokes. Dean Spanos, you're a loser if you don't fire this guy right now. Sean Payton should be offered a blank check. Imagine Sean Payton with Justin Herbert. Holy smokes. But you're right, probably, Tyson. He's not going to fire him because he's a penny pincher. And so, yeah, he'll keep Staley and Lombardi's going to get fired, and we're still going to say same old Chargers as they blow games and lose inexplicable games going forward.
And this one, to me, is like an all-time collapse in its own way because the Jaguars turned the ball over 5 times, and the Chargers won the turnover battle 5-0, and they blew a 27-point lead.
How was that even possible?
It doesn't make sense. Bro, the ball doinked off dude's head on a punt. They get the ball at the 6, and they lost the game.
And they kicked the field goal.
As they're winning 24-0 or whatever.
Oh, my God. It was so bad. And there's some things to be said, because I've criticized Derek Carr for not putting the knife in and twisting it and pulling it out, right? And I think the same thing can be said about Justin Herbert's in spots, right? Like, at some point, I didn't think he was very good in the second half. And you can have a slapdick coach all you want with Brandon Staley, and I think that's evident. And with the battle OC, I don't think Lombardi's very good at all. But at the same time, like, you have to, if we're going to be calling you top 5 and like, this guy's great, you have to be overcoming that, especially against the Jaguars secondary who can be shredded up. Like, you need to find these reads and you need to be moving the chains. And he just didn't do it in the second half.
No, and he deserves to wear it a little bit. I will say, if Mike Williams was playing in this game, and maybe if Michael Bandy got snaps a week ago, so he knew what the hell to expect on the other side, then they could have maybe done something extra in the second half. Like, they lost that game week 18. And even when they were up 27-0, and then they lose it. And to be embarrassed in the second half, I think, and this is what I was saying the week before, and you were all fired up during the game on the flip side of it. But, like, Doug Peterson embarrassed Brandon Staley in the second half. And
Embarrass him.
He kept going after things that, like, the Chargers had put on film all year. The bomb to Zay Jones, perfect. Putting Asante Samuel in one-on-one situations. Trevor Lawrence checks out of the play to run a quarterback sneak or whatever, and Doug calls timeout because he really likes the look. There is no kill. Like, this is a wing tee, and we're going to turn around and hand the ball to Travis Etienne. Like, that takes nuts. And the fact that he did it knowing it was going to work to ice the game, it was like, it's just, you got clowned, dude.
Yeah, I think Brandon Staley did a good job in the first half. Like, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't say, I don't think that it was all Trevor Lawrence. Like, oh man, Trevor Lawrence was so bad in the first half. Like, at some point, the defense has to be confusing him into certain looks. I thought you could see that when you kind of look back. Like, Brandon Staley did design some things, and he's a fine defensive guy. Like, we're not looking at this guy like he's, Buddy Ryan or anything on the defensive side of the ball, but he does certain things. But I think you're right, man. In the second half, when it really mattered, Doug Peterson was like, oh, wait, that's right. I'm a Super Bowl winning head coach, and this guy's a clown on the other side, and I'm going to make him look like one.
Dude, he was a defensive coordinator at Division 3 5 years ago. He's that doesn't make any sense.
Now he's the head coach of the LA Chargers and probably won't get fired after blowing a 27-0 lead in a playoff game.
Hey man, shout out to the Jaguars because that was awesome. That was really, we just spent the whole time on LA, but Trevor Lawrence, man, that was a pretty big time fucking moment.
4 picks in the first half, 4 touchdowns in the second half. Talk about having some resolve. Oh, my
Travis Etienne looks like a guy that would deserve to be drafted in the first round after it was clowned.
Oh my god,
by me, by everybody, but
which was ridiculous.
It was. The reason they took him, I think, probably deserves to be clowned a little bit because Urban wanted Kadarius Toney, and then he was like, well, fuck. Got to get somebody like that. But the player itself, like the best running back in college football, one of the best running backs in the history of college football by the numbers. What was he, have 130 yards on the ground?
He had 109 on the ground and then more through the air.
Yeah, and we didn't get in the end zone on the ground, but pretty good day. Pretty good day for Clemson.
Yeah, it's almost like when you draft blue chip players, they're also good at the next level most of the time. So,
Who would have thought?
what a novel. And we'll break down more of the Jaguars. We didn't spend too much time on it just because it was so ridiculous what the Chargers did. But they are going into Kansas City and facing the Kansas City Chiefs with a chance to go to the AFC Championship game, as we'll give more details on that. Now, the team that we'll be facing next week, the Giants beating Minnesota. Minnesota finally got a taste of their own medicine, losing their first one-score game of the season. They are now 11-1 in one-score games this season, Tyson.
Pretty cool stat, actually. I think if you showed that to them at the beginning of the year, they've been like, "Fuck yeah!" Where do they go from here, dude? Like, what happens now in Minnesota? Yeah,
got to get a new quarterback.
You think? Because I think they're just going to run it back and be like, "Yeah, this is who we are."
That's what they're going to do, but that's not what they should do. Like, dude, Kirk Cousins checking the ball down on 4th and 10 was so Kirk Cousins.
It's 4th and 8. He throws a 3-yard pass to a tight end who's covered, like draped. Like,
get more.
It's like, okay, come on, Kirk. Justin Jefferson was triple teamed, dude. I don't care. It's 4th and 8 with the season on the line, and you can't find a way to at least. No, you don't even have to scheme it open, dude. Just fuck it. Throw the ball to him.
They didn't look at him. No, I'm sorry. Let me put it this way. They didn't target him one time that entire final drive with their season on the line. Didn't target the best receiver in the NFL once. And not only did they not target him, Tyson, Kirk Cousins didn't even look at him. How that's so inexcusable from not only the quarterback, but the play caller, whether it's O'Connell, which it is, or in the offensive coordinating entire offensive staff. That's inexcusable. That just can't happen. Hey, we need this drive like really bad. This is our season. Hey, you know we'd really like to have the best receiver in the NFL. Oh, wait, we have him? Really? Oh, we didn't know that. We didn't look at him the entire time. Like, I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I'm like, you have this guy and you're throwing it to – and TJ Hawkinson's good. He's not a top 5 tight end in the league.
Why is he even running that route on 4th? Like, why is that even an option on the play?
I have no clue.
Kirk has to know that's the last resort. I mean, I don't know that, but I'd have to
last
imagine.
Resort if literally nobody's in the zip code.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Defense sucked for Minnesota. And great game plan by Dayball. Great offensive execution by the Giants. Daniel Jones, best game of his career by a good amount. And he went from that we didn't think he was going to get signed after this season. They don't pick up his 5th-year option. And now it's like, well, Daniel Jones is going to get paid. He won't get as much as like Jalen Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, all the other guys that are up, but he's going to get paid, and he deserves it, dude. Like he's done well, and if he continues to do well, hopefully not good enough to beat Philadelphia, but the way he played on Saturday what day was this one? Sunday.
This is Sunday.
This team can beat anybody.
Daniel Jones led the game in passing with 301 and rushing with 78. Like, the dude was awesome, man. Like, Dayball was awesome. Game planning. Mike Kafka did a great job calling and scheming. Dude, like, Isaiah Hodgins wide open. Darius Slayton open every play. Like, they just diced them up. It looked so good. And Saquon Barkley's a beast, man. Like, yes, he didn't have, like, the gaudy numbers. Like I said, Daniel Jones led the game in rushing. But the reason why is because you have to pay so much attention to Saquon. He's just a beast, and then you can just give it to him, and sure, he gets 5 yards, but that's a loud 5 yards. And it hurts your linebacker to tackle him, and you're like, oh, shit, we better all wrap up because this guy can pop it off for 80 if we don't pay attention to him. The Giants, I think that was the best game of the season for them. And there's maybe statistically better games, but not in the biggest moment. Not when your quarterback played the best game of his career, and not when the defense looked like that, man. That defensive line was awesome.
It just everything went really, really well for New York, and everything that the Vikings do poorly was exposed all at the same time. And that was the first time, and not the first time this year because they've been clowned a couple of times, but the first time in a game that they still had a chance to win at the end. That was kind of the thing. It was like, is Minnesota actually going to pull this off again? It didn't, to me, even feel like a field goal game. at the end or a touchdown game. It just felt like New York was in control the entire time. Kenny Galladay's out here pancaking people on the edge. Like, if he's checked in, like, this Giants team is hard to play with. They're physical, and Minnesota got exposed.
Yeah, Minnesota certainly got exposed. Where do they go from here? Is Kirk Cousins going to be the answer there? We'll preview that in the offseason. Giants, Eagles preview. We have that moving forward as we chug along with this week. Tyson, as an Eagles fan, you and me, are you a little bit nervous?
I'd be lying. I mean, this is the one I wanted as an Eagles fan, but yeah.
You wanted the Seahawks. Come on, dude. We wanted the Seahawks.
I think it'd be cool to beat the Giants and beat the Cowboys. But I don't know if I could handle it. Yeah, that's true. The group chat's going to be going crazy.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So we'll preview that going forward. I'd be lying if I wasn't nervous too, but it feels fucking awesome, dude. Playoff football is the best.
Opened at 7.5 too, dude. That was a little bit bigger than I thought. By the way, while we started this, Niners opened 3.5 up to 4 now on Dallas.
How about that? Okay, last game of reaction here, Bills-Dolphins. Now, we saved, I think, the most interesting one for last year because the Bills looked like they were going to boat race Miami like everybody thought. Then they got sloppy. Then they got complacent. And Skylar Thompson, Mike McDaniel, and those weapons figured that thing out. Mike, was he? You think he was actually vaping?
I hope so. I don't understand why that'd be a big deal. I think that's fucking sick.
I mean, people used to smoke cigarettes on the side. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I want him. Like, are you kidding me? This dude's in like the highest pressure situation of his life. Let the guy rip a Nick stick. Like, just let him get out one. Come on.
If his head is buzzing,
oh, I mean, I think they should get a sponsorship out of the whole thing. That's what I think.
No, imagine that, awesome. Mike McDaniel.
It would have been way better though if the Dolphins got the playoff on 4th and 1. That was the biggest failure I think of the weekend. It's tough because on one hand it's like, how in the world did you let this happen, and then the other hand it's like practice squad linemen and the third string quarterback, and it becomes, it's a little bit easier to understand. Hard to stomach for sure for Miami because there's no realistic way that they should have been in the game. And then if you go look at the box score, you think there's no realistic way they should have lost the game. Like what this defense did to keep them in the game was awesome. They had a couple times I thought when pressure didn't get home that led to not broken coverages, but just kind of exposed some of the things they were trying to do. But when the pressure was on Josh Allen, it was him making mistakes. And he's so fucking good that he's able to overcome doing really dumb things. And I think that was my main takeaway from this game is like, if he's still doing this, they're going to get bounced out of the playoffs. Because that's the only reason that they lose to people.
The only way that game was going to be close is if Josh Allen turned the ball over. What does he do? Turns the ball over. And they started off so good. I mean, and I guess that first time it looked like he fumbled it. And it went out of bounds, or it was incomplete, whatever the call was. I can't remember, but it was like a definitely turnover worthy. And then you're like, uh-oh, is this happening? And he was awesome. And you're like, no, that's right. They're playing the Dolphins. This is going to be a blowout. The Bills have confidence. And you're like, holy shit, the Bills may actually lose this football game. And that it felt like that way for a while. Like it was like one of those things, no way the Bills can lose, right? Right? Like they're not going to. And then you're like, oh my God, the Dolphins just keep hanging around. And we've seen how this goes.
Well, it's one thing we know with Josh Allen for sure is that when he throws one, he's going to throw 3. That's just that's the way he works. And I don't know why, but it's like he turns things out. He just starts playing a little bit of hero ball because if you're Buffalo, you don't want him to stop doing those things because that's what also gets you 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a win. So you want him to be smarter, but then also that's how you win games. So I don't really know what you do about that. It would have been nice if he were to just eat the ball once, Josh. Mm-hmm. Just throw it in the stands once.
I know. I don't know what's going on with that. And that's a concerning thing going forward, especially when you play a Cincinnati team who you expect that defense to not make those mistakes like they get against Baltimore.
And a team who just wins. They just find ways to win. That's what they do.
And especially when they're going to find ways to win if you're going to be lackadaisical and not come in focused and turn the ball over.
They did the Patrick Mahomes, and it took them a half Like this Bengals team, when it gets rolling and they're in big spots, they show up. And I think if you're Buffalo, you got to feel pretty good still, because this is one of those ones where you got tested and you came out on the other side better, against a team who knows you really, really well, who has some of the premier ball hawks in the NFL.
And I think, and we'll preview and we'll discuss more about the Bills going forward as they take on the Bengals, and that's going to be certainly something that we break down. I guess as far as the Dolphins go, I'm going to say this again, and I've said it once. Stephen Ross is an absolute clown for even floating the idea out that he may fire Mike McDaniel after one season. This dude took this team to a playoff game against the Bills, competed with the Bills with the third string quarterback after his first string quarterback went down, his second string quarterback went down, and he's playing with a rookie third string quarterback. And the clown ass owner, who's suspended, by the way, for tampering and being an idiot, is floating the idea out that he may be fired after 1 year. For what? He was great under the circumstances. Clown owners and clown franchises are always going to be clowns. And it's just never more inevitable than that idiot Stephen Ross saying that about Mike McDaniel, who's done nothing but be a good coach so far in the NFL.
Yeah, he would last as long as he wanted to spend in Thailand with Cliff Kingsbury, I think, because he'd get scooped up immediately.
Oh my God, Cliff Kingsbury, man, I'd love to go hang out with him.
I wonder what he's doing down there. You think he's just vibing?
Probably. He seems like a viber, right?
Maybe. I mean, we'll see. I think he's going to get pretty fucking creeped out when Brandon Staley shows up at wherever he's hanging out at.
Wild card weekend reaction here. We got a ton more coming up this week. I'm excited, man. I think the divisional round is going to be good. Like, this was a good weekend. It wasn't as good as last year's wild card. No, I'm sorry. Super wild card weekend, Tyson. Yeah. But this was a fun weekend overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's playoff football, and it's the best, right? And it's always nice to get one, and we'll get into the betting stuff next week, but a little taste that, this thing is a little bit more physical than I remember.
Right, and it's good because I kind of got my ass kicked a little bit this weekend. Just a tiny bit, which is unfortunate. Like, subscribe, and share the show. We appreciate you guys watching. Instagram @ the roundtable pod _ our TikTok handle is the same. And then feel free to send us a tweet at TRT _ pod. And I got my ass kicked the NFL, Tyson, but I had a hell of a college basketball weekend, and they could follow our picks where?
On the Chalkboard app. It's in the App Store or Google Play. Group name is the Roundtable in there. We're just throwing bets up, trying to get rich, trying to hit bets, trying to find value. And you can follow us in there. There's tons of posts on pretty much everything you could think of. And if you think that we're idiots, then you don't have to, play what we play. Go against us. It would have worked last week.
It would have worked in the NFL for sure. Don't fade my college basketball, damn it. I'm begging you to jump on board with me.
Unless he picks Georgetown.
They're blackballed. Actually blackballed.
So were the Bucks.
So were the Bucks. You're right. At least I can't do it. Can't believe I followed Brad's NFL slate. Well, T-Money, you were on the same thing with me.
You knew better, brother.
Don't you worry. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. We will be back later in the week to break down schematically what we're going to see in the divisional football round of the NFL playoffs. We will talk to you all then. Peace.